Welcome into the Atlanta Sports Party, your home for the best Atlanta sports talk. It's a little insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me are Jarvis Davis and Maria Martin. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers, join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. And of course, the Atlanta Sports Party is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, guys, is Spencer Strider about to become the sensei and another sports scare in the city last night? And is someone talking defense and shooting shots? Shots fired. We'll talk about all of it, but let's get the started under center. Jarvis, the QB projections have all of a sudden shifted from Justin Fields to Kirk Cousins for the Falcons. What are some of the benefits you think, and maybe downfalls too, for Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot maybe hitching their wagon to one Kirk Cousins?
To be honest, my first reaction when they started saying that the Falcons are the lead and they're going to be aggressive and all that stuff, I'm kind of like, I'm not excited about it. Let me be honest, because here's the thing. One thing that I've learned from watching Kirk Cousins from afar, obviously, over the years and everything like that, is that he's always been the guy that kind of finds a moment to kind of tinkle on himself, just, when it from a sports standpoint, not literally, for all my people out there, he just finds a way to make a mistake at the wrong possible time, right? 1-3 in the postseason. And, most of the time he's going to give you some good stats and put up some good numbers and uh, and being able to, getting 30 plus touchdowns in 3 out of the 6 years that he's been with the Minnesota Vikings. Yeah, all that's all good. But oh my gosh, I just don't, I can't, it's hard for me to get excited about because these reasons alone, the money, right? It's going to be 40 million, 40 plus million. We got the report of 2 years for 45 million at 90 million total. That report came out sometime a few weeks ago. And when you think about, we know he's going to want at least 1 or 2 years guaranteed, fully guaranteed. So, hey, you putting yourself in a situation where, hey, what if you putting yourself in a situation that could possibly happen? Think about this scenario. Sign Kirk Cousins. Everybody all excited. He's going to put up some points this year. The familiarity with Raheem Morris and Kevin O'Connell. He was working with Zach Robinson, worked with Kevin O'Connell and all that stuff. First game of the year, boop, he popped that doggone other Achilles, because we know that's liable to happen because, hey, that's just, you've been supplemented for that, as you've been going through rehab. And we saw what happened with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Now you're back picking in the lottery again. So that's where my mind goes when I hear that the Falcons are probably going to hitch their wagons to Kirk Cousins and try to bring them down to Atlanta. Sorry, guys, rain on your parade, but that's how I feel. Sorry.
It's fair. It's fair. How about you, Maria?
I don't feel as strongly as Jarvis.
Yeah, because Jarvis came out
not wanting Kirk
he was
Cousins
coming in hot there.
Yeah, I was just sitting here thinking like, and I know that Jarvis feels some type of way about Kirk Cousins because he came on Sports Extra and I didn't give him an opportunity to answer because we were running out of time, but I really wanted to because I knew.
So here it is.
I need to talk about Kirk Cousins. I'm glad that you brought up the injury, and I'm glad that you brought up Aaron Rodgers specifically, because I think there are a little bit different scenarios in which Aaron Rodgers, obviously, he didn't have that underlying condition. Kirk Cousins has already done it. Aaron Rodgers was kind of a freak thing. But for Kirk and for Raheem Morris, I don't know that a first-time head coach for the first time in a long time, not that he hasn't been a head coach before, but I don't know that he would hitch his wagon to something he didn't feel very confident in. So I think that they would do their due diligence for sure when it comes to the injury. Kirk Cousins posted on, I think, his Twitter, him moving around on a tennis court. He looked really good for 4 months out from an Achilles injury. I thought he was moving around as good as you can at 4 months. I'm not as nervous about it as other people, mostly because it's an upgrade from what the Falcons have had without a doubt. And you can
Definitely.
still get a lower tier quarterback, a younger one, if you go with Kirk Cousins. The Falcons are going to have the money to do it. I saw on Sports Track that they were 41 under the cap, 41 million under the cap. I mean, that's a lot of money that they haven't spent. And of course, like all of these numbers get fabricated when you're talking about quarterbacks. Their agents want that to happen because they want the market to go up. They want the numbers to go up on the quarterback. So who knows what Kirk is really asking for? He may take slight discounts because of his ties to Georgia. Remember, him and his wife got married here. They do love it here. They spend a lot of time here. That weighs into some people's decisions personally. And he is the veteran. I know he's 1-4 in the postseason, but this is a good team. And I think if they add a few more pieces, a guy like Kirk Cousins, who's been there, done that, been around, I think it could really work, especially with the familiarity with Raheem Morris. That's not to say other quarterbacks couldn't work, but I just don't hate it as much as you do.
Well, it's funny because, Maria, when people begin, whether it's media, whether it's a fan base, when people begin to talk about the quarterback position, whether it is a conversation on Kirk Cousins, Justin Fields, or even Russell Wilson, I mean, speaking of hitching a wagon, I mean, folks are hitching their wagons, and they are standing 10 toes down when it comes to whoever is their preferred quarterback. For me, I'll just take the stance of looking at it bigger picture. I just want Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris and Arthur Blank to get this right as an organization. And I don't just mean the pick, I mean the whole process, because as 3 media members who covered the whole debacle of Matt Ryan still here, we should have let him go when we could have gotten something for him. Ooh, salivating over Deshaun Watson. Let's go after him. Oh, we got it. Oh, we don't got him. And everything, all of the fallout that we know both on the field and off the field from that, I'm just looking at it saying, hey, I might even have a preference on who you hit your wagon with as well. Although each week I'm like, I admit it, I vacillate. But my bigger concern is whether you go with one of the veteran QBs who's out there, or if you go up in the draft, just get the narrative right for your fan base and make sure that you handle this the right way so that there's not a ripple effect that we're still talking about a couple years from now. Just like, let's just keep it real. Just like we're having a conversation about what happened 4 years ago when we didn't pick Justin Fields, and the conversation about the Matt Ryan, Deshaun Watson debacle. Just don't want that anymore for that organization. Just hope that they have a clean start and then they make a good decision, Maria, like they made when they decided to re-sign the inside line. It was really lights out last year. It really had banner years in every area, whether you talk about tackles, I think it was a high of 120, and tackles for loss 7, career QB hits at 4. A nice winning for Terry Fontenot.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think so, especially because this is a former undrafted free agent. I mean, this is a discount signing. This is huge. Yes. And those are the kind of signings that you want right now when you're trying to go out and spend all of this money that you've worked so hard to acquire for this organization. And I think that Nate, obviously, he went above and beyond expectations last year. You mentioned it. 110 total tackles last year, 2 sacks. He was surprisingly very good. And I think if you add another linebacker in that mix, because they're certainly missing some depth there, you still get him at a discount, and he's a lot better than a lot of people anticipated. So I'm interested to see what he can do, especially on a team that he's already comfortable with. I think that he's only going to get better.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Maria, because here's the thing. Like, when you think about that undrafted free agent, I think people kind of gloss over that. Like, the probability of those guys making the team.
Yeah, thank you.
Just making the team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, that's one tier. And then not only making the team, you get an opportunity to play. Okay, that's one tier. That's the next tier. And then you get the opportunity to play. You ball, and you have a good season. And to the point where we weren't even talking about Troy Anderson towards the end of last year.
Yes.
Like, I know I wasn't concerned about Troy Anderson because Nate Landman was getting the job done. Now, granted, does he have a little, some areas of the weaknesses in his game? Absolutely. And from a pass cover standpoint, yeah, get it. Possibly, but oh my gosh. That first 2 downs, you talking about an old school linebacker coming downhill and making plays and making tackles and putting the guy where he catches the ball down where he lays. Yeah, that wherever his feet is, I appreciate guys like Nate Landman. And you need guys when it comes to, like Maria said, when it comes time to spend money, you have to have some value picks in order to spend money, because like when you are finding value in that undrafted free agent pool, and those guys are starting caliber players, guys who can come in and fill in for more than just a couple of games, that's when you know you're doing your job. And that's one of the reasons why Terry Fontenot still has one.
Can I tell you a funny story about Nate real quick?
Sure, absolutely.
So Nate is super under the radar. He doesn't like to be in the spotlight. He doesn't like when he gets a lot of attention. And what's funny is one time I was in the locker room. This is in the middle of the week at Flowery Branch. And I go over there because he's freaking bawling. So I'm like, of course, we have to talk to Nate, right? Yeah. So I go over there. We start talking to him. And then everyone else starts coming over. And all the guys start yelling at him. And they're like, Nate, you know, like bugging him. And he was like rolling his eyes at me. I said, okay, then play worse. What do you want from me? Because I think that you should be in the spotlight. So he doesn't like it. He's a guy that likes to fly under the radar. And boy, did he fly for sure. I mean, I thought it was fantastic. Just a fun little thing about Nate.
Oh, yeah. And I can appreciate that. And he also reminds me of a guy who was a good mentor to me when I first entered this industry, who did the same thing. It was quite serviceable for a decade with the Atlanta Falcons. And that is one Jamie Dukes on the offensive side of the ball, one of the O-linemen who, as an undrafted free agent, really made a name for himself here in Atlanta. So when we come back, we'll talk about Spencer Strider becoming a sensei. You want to hear about it? We'll tell you on the other side. This episode of Atlanta Sports Party is brought to you by FanDuel. You can get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bet, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. And when we talk about some quick bets, none other than the Hawks last night, who got their second win in a row. They won and beat the Cavs in their home building here at State Farm Arena. So if you bet on that game, that was a good look for you. And yes, they've got a lot of players out, but they're going to travel to Memphis on Friday to take on a Grizzlies team that's kind of hobbled as well. They got a day of rest that they're going to go on. So that should be a good look. And you can do a same game parlay with that game. And don't forget, you might want to put a little money on Bogey, because Bogdan Bogdanovic was back last night. Also, there are exclusive prop bets that you might want to take advantage of, and so much more. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot like Sadiq Bey did last night. 23 points for both him and Bogey in that game. Shoot your shot with FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel is the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Guys, Spencer Strider is doing some damage down in Florida for spring practice and good spring training, rather. And we're about 3 weeks away from opening day, and you're kind of at that point where you're getting a look at the Braves pitchers in the rotation for the second time in the cycle. And Spencer Strider is one of those guys that we're due to see in the next game or so. He has had himself a spring training, most recently pitching 4 innings of 4-hit ball. He struck out 4 a couple days ago. Maria, if he masters that curveball, is he the most dangerous pitcher in this Braves starting rotation?
I think it's certainly possible, right? He threw a curveball when he was in college at Clemson and kind of got rid of it when he went to the major league level. And he's really lacked another pitch that would give him some more oomph, especially against those lefties. And I think that this is it. And the fact that he's good at it is certainly going to be very dangerous. And it's funny because I watched his first live BP down there in Florida. And as it was happening, he seemed to mix it in a few times, not as much as he is now. Because remember, when I went, it was a couple weeks ago, maybe about a month ago now. Mm-hmm. And some of the guys it was Matt Olson and Austin Riley that were up against him that day. And Matt watched one of them go by and he goes, was that it? And they were shocked that it was coming out so quickly and so dominantly. And that was just the beginning of him mixing in this pitch. So he's so cerebral. He's one of the most interesting players I think I've ever been around in my career. And the way that he navigates pitching is like a Sudoku puzzle, honestly. And so it's fun to watch. And I think him adding this, he's going to be one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball without question, because what he did last year, and you know how dangerous his fastball slider combo is, you add this in, and consistently, that's terrifying.
Yeah, when you think about like this is the completion of Strider, right? Because we understand what he was able to bring to the table with the fastball and just throwing the heat and having that slider, obviously. And then I was thinking that he probably thought he was going to be a reliever or a dominant closer when he first came in. That's probably why he got rid of it initially, Maria. To your point, so I just think that this is, and I hate to keep bringing this up, but this is the ace of the staff going forward because we understand what's about to go down with Max Fried. I know nobody don't want to talk about it and mention it, and he's trying to have the best season of his life, and so he can go out there and get some life-changing type money. But oh my God, Spencer Strider is the guy, and I hate to bring up Max Fried to make my point, but this is the guy that is going to lead this staff into the future because he's under contract, because he's finally starting to add that pitch, that curveball that can be potentially be another out pitch for him. So when you have him with those 3 out pitches, that's when you start talking about like, hey, I don't care about going through the rotation. I'm going through the batting lineup twice, or even 3 times. They let him go that far. So I think this is I think how the number 7 is the number of completion, but the number 3 is the number of completion for Spencer Strider and getting adding that 3rd pitch.
And not just 3 pitches, but 3 that he does really well.
Yes.
Right. No doubt. Absolutely.
And I think it started for him after the Braves had to exit stage left against the Phillies last season. I think in his mind, he took that personally and he said, not again, like never again. And that entire offseason, it just seems like, to your point, Maria, about being cerebral, it was a thought for him, whether that was strength and conditioning, whether that was adding back that pitch, but adding it back better to his arsenal and his toolkit. And I kind of he's already kind of angry Spencer Strider. Like that's him. And when I say angry, I say that with love, but I like angry Spencer Strider because I think that's how he's going from being a thrower, a flamethrower, to a full on pitcher. And like Jarvis said, arguably the ace of the staff. And when you look at the staff and some of the things that we're seeing, like Charlie Morton is getting after it. And it's like, okay, this guy just keeps tapping into the fountain of youth. Or you see what Chris Sale has been able to do, showing you flashes of the old Chris Sale. And we could go on. And we might see some things. We hope to see some good things out of Bryce Elder when he hits the bump this afternoon. When you look at this staff, Jarvis, what's maybe that one word that you think of about this pitching staff overall?
Depth. Like all the people you just named, Bryce Elder, Spencer Strider, like AJ Smith-Shawver, throw his name in the hat as well. Hurston Waldrop, we might see him. Who knows? They just have so many arms, so many pitchers. Like because I've always talked about how Charlie Morton, when he gets down to the end of the season, like that injury, which is understandable. The man's 40 years old. They're going to be a point where he's going to need a little break. So you have guys. You have a guy who made an All-Star in the first half of the season in Bryce Elder to come in and step in. You have a guy in Hurston Waldrop who flew up the minor league rankings last year once the Braves drafted him. And then you just have so many AJ Smith-Shawver who came in and shown you that, hey, this guy needs to stick around. So they just have so many arms. And the first word that comes to mind when I see this pitching staff, it has to be absolutely 1,000% depth. They have it, and they are going to be able to roll with it throughout the season.
And Maria, speaking of depth, we all took a collective sigh when Ronald Acuna Jr., we found out that, hey, oh my, there's not anything really bad. The meniscus, it's a little irritated, but we'll take irritation over anything that's more major, right? And and so for me, the one word is when it comes to Ronald Acuna Jr. And then, of course, he got back to baseball activities today. He's not traveling with the team. He's staying back. But the good thing is that he's back in a space and place where you want him to be. And even Sean Murphy, who was battling a stomach bug earlier this week, he's expected to likely hit the field tomorrow. But again, how excited are we, A, to have gotten the news that we received earlier in the week for Ronald Acuna Jr., but B, also to see him getting back to BP today and starting to really get back into baseball activities. And Brian Snitker has not ruled out that we might see him for opening day.
Yeah, I mean, even Alex Anthopoulos said they anticipate him to be ready to go for opening day. And yeah, it's a big sigh of relief. He's your reigning National League MVP. Of course you want him to play on opening day and you want him there the whole time. And
Yes.
Ronald is I like to compare him to a bull because he's hard to hold back. You know, he literally said, I could play today. And this is right after he came back from Los Angeles. And his direct quote was, play like a boss. So not just could he play, he said in English,
I can play like that guy.
Like a boss.
Right? I am him.
Yeah, exactly. It's the viral video that Reggie Chapman took a couple years ago where, you know, Ronald coming off the injury, hit a home run out of the ballpark at Cool Today Park, and he just said, I'm back. It's the same vibes. And so that is exactly what you know, you expect out of him. And of course you want him in this lineup. He's so meaningful. And I just expect even better things from him. He's not one to put numbers on expectations for himself, personal numbers, but he kind of said on MLB Network that 50-50 is not out of the realm of possibility. And I'm thinking we're talking buku numbers. We're talking craziness. But to him, it's, well, that's just the next step for me. I already did this, so let me just keep checking it off until I can't be stopped. So, yeah, it's exciting. He's so crucial to that lineup. And I think you got to watch it really carefully, though, because obviously it's a little concerning. I'm not a doctor, though, so I know that they will handle that as they should. But hearing that he should be ready to go for opening day, fantastic.
Indeed. And when we did MLB Locked On previews going all around Major League Baseball, one of the questions that we asked, and hopefully you guys will be able to check that out on our national channels, one of the questions we asked was about that NL MVP and, of course, AL MVP race too. And the funny thing is, we would ask each of our hosts to kind of tell us who they thought was coming out of their division and who they thought was coming maybe off their team. And every host for the National League said, yeah, but Ronald Acuna Jr. That was the answer to every single question. So the fear of God has officially still is there and is still there, has been there and will be there for all of the National League and Major League Baseball is on alert as well. Listen, speaking of being on alert, we were on alert last night for a moment, had a scare in the city. We'll talk about it when we go around the metro. So, guys, we're going to get the elephant in the room out of the room really, really quickly. And that is last night. We're watching Jalen Johnson, and he's going on another tear, right? Had a great game against the Knicks a couple nights ago and was all primed to have another monster night against the Cavs. And all of a sudden, beginning of the third quarter, he's going up for an offensive rebound, comes down really hard. And it looks like there's a sprained right ankle. The Hawks are being a little bit quiet on this one. But ultimately speaking, of course, he left the game and did not return. How scary was that just to see that all play out last night? Whew.
Wow. I know where my mind went when I saw Jalen Johnson rolling around on the ground and holding his ankle. I was just like, yeah. So Trey is out. Onyeka Okongwu is out. I think we need to pull another Dallas Mavericks. And hey, you know, we're at 10 spot, and we probably need to
go you're not moving.
Start idling down.
Yeah,
we ain't gonna say that other word. We need to start idling down because
I like that.
We don't need to be damaging our future. We don't need to be damage our future by putting people at risk to have longer term injuries. You know what I'm saying? But we got to be healthy for the 2024-2025 season. You know what I'm saying? We got to start thinking ahead. So yeah, it's time to start idling down. Yeah.
Yeah, Maria, when you see your team's MVP, and I'm calling it, he is the MVP for this Hawks team for this 23-24 season. When you see something like that happen and you're looking at the standings and thinking, okay, in the next 20 games, in all honesty, the Hawks are probably not going to move out of the 10th spot. They'd be lucky to get into that 9th spot. Jarvis makes a good case for erring on the side of caution, or like the Braves often say, out of an abundance of caution, we will not play so-and-so today. Yeah, Hawks, you might want to take a listen into what the Braves like to do.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree with that. The idle down thing cracks me up. I think it's the perfect way to sum it up. When he went down, I was looking away for a couple seconds. I was sitting at work and I was looking away and I look up. I'm like, oh no, that can't be Jalen Johnson on the court. That can't be him on the ground. Excuse me. Because as you mentioned, there had been very untimely injuries for this team. And this is perhaps one of the more untimely ones. Of course, Trae's was bad, 100%. But now Jalen's balling, and he's showing us that he can be a part of the future of this team and a part of the future of the NBA. He's going to be one of the best players around, and he's showing that he has a high ceiling. So for him to be on the floor, I was like, oh, this team's in trouble. Oh, they're in trouble, especially because they're without other key pieces. I thought, I don't want to say it, but I said, the play-in tournament doesn't look so good anymore because that play-in spot looks like it's escaping when a guy like Jalen Johnson goes down when everyone else has gone down as well.
Yeah, I would agree. And they've had enough frontline challenges. Clint Capella is still not back to 100%. Yep. Let's just be honest. Bruno Fernando gives you what he can. He actually had a really great game last night, but then the last two nights we were like, yeah, we don't talk enough about Bruno, and nor should we. So there's some challenges there with the front line. Quit it, Jarvis Davis. But there are some challenges there with the front line. Like that. We just really don't need it. We don't need it. We don't need it.
Jarvis, you're so petty. Idle down, Jarvis. Idle down.
He is, Maria.
I'm sorry, but here's the thing though, like that's where we are in this season for the Hawks, right? Like that just sums it up. We are giving credit for a big man doing what a big man supposed to do in the NBA. I'm like that's what we are. Like, indeed. Can we give credit for people exceeding expectations or exceeding what they're supposed to be doing? Like,
right. Well, speaking of credit where credit is due and wanting to just do your job. Trae Young talked about that recently on Taylor Rooks' podcast. I think it's on X, if you will, because she does have two, but this was her X podcast. And she asked him some questions point blank about playing defense. And Trae, I call it Traeisms. So initially he said, hey, he's proud of himself. He trusts the process, knows that to be a really good defender in the league takes, especially because of his size. It's a big man's league, blah, blah. He says he feels like you have to be smart. And now that he's got more years under his belt, he's learned the different places that he can be in. Shout out to him for understanding how to really look for those passing lanes and try to block them, and for taking charges here and there. But he also said, hey, when I look back, could I have had a little bit more effort defense? Yes, I could have, but there are 5 players out there and everybody has to do their job. So I'm just going to fall back and let you guys kind of react to some of what Trae had to say about defense in the podcast with Taylor Rooks.
Jarvis, you take it away because your face is cracking me up.
No, I'm trying to idle down. Idle down.
Idle down.
He doesn't know how to do that, Maria.
Idle down.
Yeah.
Well, I look at it like this. Like, I appreciate Trae for being honest, right? Because
he is.
There are certain things that we see on the court on a nightly basis. I understand that this man is 6 feet even, 6'1", whatever you want to give him. And he's out there on the court with a lot of dudes that are much taller than him, especially in today's league, right? It seems like everybody is 6'8", 210, right? You know what I'm saying? 6'7", 6'8", this is a wing heavy league. Like, you got to be able to, that's the only way you're going to be able to win games is in a wing heavy league. And that's what the issues with the Hawks this year, because you had DeAndre Hunter and Jalen Johnson out for long periods of time. Guess what position those guys play? Those guys play the wing, and guess what? Those guys have to play in order for them to have a chance to win games. Really solid defense. And when you're without those type of guys, like that little point guard going to get exposed from time to time. So I appreciate him for being honest and saying, hey, and admitting to, his deficiencies, because most of the time he doesn't really have to, because you talking about somebody putting up 27 and 9, and a 3-time All-Star when people clearly don't want him to make the All-Star team, and he still has made it 3 times in his career. Yeah, I appreciate that. I can definitely appreciate that. See, that wasn't bad.
Good job. Am I supposed to follow that? Look, I listened to the 50-minute long interview with Trae and Taylor Rooks, and yes, I listened to the entire thing.
Congrats, because I couldn't get through 10 minutes, but it was I got through the 10 minutes I needed to. Let me just.
I did. I listened to the whole thing, and I I'll give him a lot of credit. He was a lot more open than I think we've seen him be at times. She asked him if he thinks he's going to be a Hawk next year. She asked him, very
about being a
poignant
coach killer.
questions.
Correct. Yeah.
about being a coach killer, about being, quote, selfish. And he said that, I get pinned as selfish because I just want to win and I play a lot. This is the first time we've seen him miss 4+ games in his career with Atlanta. So he's like, I play every game. I do everything I can to win. So the people calling me selfish is just because I'm doing everything I can to help us win. He also said that for him, and the reason why he went to Oklahoma, this is what I thought was very interesting. The reason why he went to Oklahoma instead of other schools is because they weren't known for winning championships. And he wanted to be, because he feels like he's always been the underdog, and because people have always said, he's not good enough. He wanted to prove to people that he was good enough by bringing championships to Oklahoma. He said the same thing about the Hawks and why he's still passionate about playing here, because he knows that this city has never had an NBA championship title. And so he wants to be the one to bring that here. So I thought that was interesting to hear him say that. We've heard him say that he wants to win in the past, but admitting to his deficiencies was great. I thought that it was a mature interview. He was honest about a lot of stuff. And he also said that he does have a good relationship with Nate, and they just haven't been able to talk about a lot of stuff that happened. So
and that's probably my only issue with that's probably my issue with the interview. I think that 90 to 95% of it was, yes, I saw more humility, I saw more maturity in that interview. But I think, unfortunately, where the world is probably going to park its car is saying that he hasn't been able to talk to Nate, because most people are saying, well, last I checked, if I want to talk to you, I'm going to just pick up a phone and talk to you, or I'm going to text you. I think, in my opinion, it's just good for them to just admit, hey, we don't get along, we don't have a relationship, and that's okay. If Trey and Nate McMillan don't have a relationship, no different than it's okay. If he never has a relationship with Lloyd Pierce ever again, that's quite fine. I think that's one of those where maybe
idle down.
Sorry, my bad.
I think that's one of those where if you don't have the relationship, it's perfectly okay. Just kind of put that out there and, just admit that you've moved on, and I think everybody else will move on. But I have to say, Maria, this is definitely a show of maturity from maybe the Trey we would have seen a year or two ago, where people just kind of parked their cars at him saying the regular season was kind of boring. This is a different guy, and I hope that he gets the respect that he deserves for growing and being willing to evolve and being willing to kind of show some of the warts that come from that evolution. Listen, we appreciate you guys for stopping by the Atlanta Sports Party. The Locked On Sports Atlanta YouTube channel is now streaming live 24/7. It's all things Atlanta Sports 24/7. And remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's also free and available wherever you download your podcasts. We are so excited to tell you that we will see you on Monday on the Atlanta Football Party, where you can get all the petty Jarvis and all the idling down attempts from Jarvis that you want. Bye from Maria and Tenitra. It's Jarvis. See ya.